Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Ordinary Council meeting for Monday, the 11th of September 2023. Item 1, meeting opening. Item 1.1, opening of meeting by me. 1.2, attendance. Are there any apologies, Mr Bosman?
Madam Mayor, we have received apologies from two councillors, Councillor Alana Formosa and Councillor Angela Long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 1.3, acknowledgement of traditional custodians of this land. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Bunurong people, and pay respect to their elders past and present. We recognise and respect their continuing connections to climate, culture, country and waters. And we also pay our respect and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their elders present here today in acknowledging their journey. Item 1.4, offering of prayer, reflection or affirmation. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer, reflection or affirmation this evening will be offered by Venerable Ol Sam from Buddhist Wat Buddharangsi, a member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Network. Can I please ask everyone to stand?
Thank you, everybody. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sappa putthiya nuphiya vena, sappa dhammiya nuphiya vena, sappa sankhiya nuphiya vena. Satya sothai bhavante re bhavatu sappa mangalang rakhantu sappa devata sappa dhammiya nuphiya vena. Satya sothai bhavantu te. อายุวัฏกาลธนวัฏกาลสิริวัฏกาลยศวัฏกาลพลวัฏกาลวานวัฏกาลสุขวัฏกาลหาตุสัพพติยตุกโรกพยเวริยสาวกาสันโตจุปัตตเวอเนกาอันตรายาภิวินาสันติจเตจสาจิยสัทธิตนังเลพยังสาวติเพียกยังสุขังพลังเสรัยอายุจวันหนาวจะโภกยังวุฒิจยสวาสตวัสสาจะอายุจะจีวสัตถิพระวันโตเต by the power of all the Buddha, by the power of all the Dhamma, by the power of all the Sangha, the Buddha Trisura, the Dhamma Trisura, the Sangha Trisura, by the power of all the three Trisura, by the power of all 48,000 sections of Dhamma, by the power of the Sri Tripaka, by the power of all the conquerors, so disciple, may all your disease, all your dangers, all your obstacles, all your distress, all your unlikely unsign, all your suspicious, all be destroyed, long life increasing, wealth increasing, fortune increasing, fame increasing, power increasing, beauty increasing, happiness increasing, may they ever be. Dukkha, disease, danger, enemy, sorrow, peril, and distress. Not only one obstacle, may there be destroyed by this power. So the three armed success, the wealth, safety, luck, happiness, gain, and strength, fortune, long life, and beauty, prosperity, and fame, may they increase. And 100 years of life and successful and livelihood may you be. May there be for you all blessing. May all the Deva guard you well. by the power of all the Dhamma, by the power of all the Buddha, by the power of all the Sangha, ever and safety may you be. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Item 1.5, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. Moved by Councillor Trung.
A second.
Seconded by Councillor Mehmeti. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 1.6, disclosures of interest. Mr Bosman, are there any disclosures of interest for this evening?
Madam Mayor, we've received no disclosures of interest.
Thank you. Item 2, Officers' Reports, Part 1, 2.1, Petitions and Joint Letters, 2.1.1, Petitions and Joint Letters.
Happy to move.
Moved by Councillor Mehmeti, seconded by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 2.2, Statutory Planning Applications. 2.2.1, Town Planning Application Number 12, Kelly Court, Springvale. Planning Application Number PLN 22/0486. Moved by Councillor Garrard.
Happy to second.
Seconded by Councillor Mehmeti. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried, and apologies for any background noise if you're watching online. I do apologise. Item 3, public question time. Mr Bosman, do we have any questions for this evening?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Through yourself, there are a number of questions. The first question is from Mr Brad Woodford of Noble Park. I believe Mr Woodford is in the gallery. And will Mr Woodford come to the microphone to ask his question, please?
Thank you, Mr Woodford.
In regards to the number 8 Balmoral Avenue car park in Springvale. I'm a weekly visitor to Springvale, and I recently discovered that basically all of the car parks above level 3 are now subject to a parking permit, so the general public can't use them. So basically the context of my question is, basically I want to know what the aim of the new permit arrangement is. What has the uptake of permits been so far? Why are so many of those car parks now sitting empty on a daily basis? And has Council undertaken any means to compensate the general public with alternative parking areas for those who are unwilling to pay what I consider to be exorbitant fees for a permit? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Woodford. I'll put that question to our Acting Director of City Planning, Design and Amenity, Mr Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Mr Woodford. The purpose for the new arrangement is due to many traders having occupied the time spaces within the streets of the Springvale Activity Centre, which has placed increased pressure on the availability of car parking spaces in this area. To address the issue, the permit arrangement has been introduced to provide traders with a longer-term parking option and to provide greater opportunity for customers to park in the short-term spaces in the streets of the Springvale Activity Centre. In terms of the utilisation of the permits, Council has issued over 70 permits to date and is continuing to work with traders and other stakeholders to increase this number, with initiatives such as low-cost permit options for traders to park within the above level 3 of the car park, increased promotion and advertising of these options, improved electronic signage at the car park entrance to provide up-to-date and accurate information regarding spaces available within the car park, also working with stakeholders regarding the relocating residents and or permit holders who are currently parking in the area below the door to relocate above the door to free up more spaces for the public on the lower levels, and also working with stakeholders to relocate traders that are parking in other car parks around the activity centre and move them into this permit area to free up more spaces across other car parks within the activity centre. We do acknowledge that there may be other options to help improve this system as we move forward, and we're continuing to monitor and review the situation and try and achieve the best outcome possible for all parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Jackson. Thank you, Mr Woodford. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, the next three questions are from Isabel Nash of Keysborough. I'll invite Isabel to the microphone, and I think we'll deal with them sequentially so that the Mayor can apportion them to the relevant officers. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms
Good
Nash.
evening, everyone. A public council report in February this year indicated that Greater Dandenong Council had a sustainability team that was unable to cope with the workload that it had. Out of the 44 actions allocated to the team in the Sustainability Strategy and Climate Emergency Strategy, 38 of them would be considerably delayed or abandoned due to a lack of resourcing. The report showed that Greater Dandenong Council had only about 1/3 of the size of the sustainability team of other councils. While there are 2 new staff this year, this still leaves Greater Dandenong Council well short of the average, and that doesn't take into account that other councils are also continuing to increase their sustainability teams in the meantime. A look at recent council budgets indicates that there is still little funding being allocated to the climate incentives as well. Given that the climate change is a major issue of our time and Greater Dandenong has declared a climate emergency, when is the Greater Dandenong Council going to step up and fund climate action properly like other councils?
Thank you, Ms Nash. I'll put that question to Mr Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Isabel. As you've mentioned, climate change is a significant issue facing all organisations and people across the world. And Council's taking its responsibilities very seriously, including declaring a climate and ecological emergency, as you mentioned. To this extent, Council continues to invest in ensuring it meets its climate change expectations and responsibilities, and is focusing on utilising its resources in the smartest and most efficient way possible to meet this challenge. Council's well on its way to meeting its 2025 target of becoming a net zero emissions organisation, and has progressed several items this year to assist in that area. The 2023 Sustainability Festival, for example, was the most successful on record, with over 3,000 attendees and very positive feedback from the community. A gas transition feasibility report has been completed this year by officers, and this is a significant and critical piece of work that will facilitate Council's final elements of its transition to net zero emissions across its operations. Additionally, the recent delivery of the Environmental Education Electric Van marks a major step forward, enabling Council's sustainability parks and waste teams to better reach and engage our community in the climate space. The van, pleasingly, will be officially launched at the Little Day Out this Sunday at Ross Reserve. Council is also investing significantly this year in its tree planting program to improve the canopy coverage throughout the municipality. To assist with the above and many other initiatives, including the 44 that you were mentioned earlier in the question, Council has converted a temporary sustainability officer to a permanent position, and has also funded an additional sustainability planner role, and that person will hopefully be starting in that role very shortly. While we acknowledge there is still a way to go to address the significant issues of climate change, I can advise that Council is taking positive steps forward to resource and address this issue, and it's intended that will continue into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Jackson. Ms Nash, would you like to continue with your second question, please?
Is, with the recently endorsed Greater Dandenong Biodiversity Action Plan, does Greater Dandenong Council have the resourcing to implement it, and if not, what is the shortfall and when will this be addressed?
Thank you, Ms Nash. I'll put that question to the Acting Director of Business, Engineering and Major Projects, Mr Berry, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Isabel, for the question. With regard to resourcing requirements to implement the Biodiversity Action Plan, it is unknown if there will be a shortfall or how much that might be. The Biodiversity Action Plan is a high-level aspirational document that covers multiple years, whereas funding for the delivery of action items in the plan is sought through our operational budgeting processes on an annual basis. Opportunities for external grant funding will also be explored to supplement operational expenditure through the life of the Biodiversity Action Plan, to assist with the delivery of these initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Berry. Ms Nash, would you like to go on to your third question, please?
Thank you. The Tree Protection Local Law was endorsed by the Greater Dandenong Council 2 months ago. In the meantime, canopy cover continues to be lost across the municipality. When will the Tree Protection Local Law be gazetted, and when will it start to be enforced?
Thank you, Ms Nash. I'll put that question to Mr Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thanks again for the question, Isabel. Since the City of Greater Dandenong Tree Protection Local Law on private land was adopted by Council a couple of months ago, it has been going through the process of obtaining a legal certification for that local law, which is a requirement of all local laws. Pleased to advise that's now completed, and it's now intended that the Tree Protection Law will be gazetted in either late September or early October this year. Once that is gazetted, it will then be enforceable, and Council will then implement that local law at that time.
Thank you, Mr Jackson. Thank you, Ms Nash. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, the next question is from Isabel Doe of Keysborough, and I believe that Isabel is also in the gallery. And Isabel, if you'd come to the microphone to ask your question, please.
Thank you, Ms Doe.
As a city, we say that we value sustainability. This year alone, we've had fantastic sustainability-minded workshops at the Springvale Community Hub, such as Urban Permaculture for Beginners, Bees for Biodiversity, Textile Conservation, No Waste Cooking, and Intro to Home Composting. If the vision is for our city to be one of the most sustainable cities in Australia by 2030, and if great acts are made up of small deeds, why is it when you visit the cafe at our Springvale Community Hub, customers are given single-use disposable cups when ordering beverages? I personally love going to the Springvale Community Hub, but it's disappointing that a non-disposable option isn't offered at point of purchase. What are the alternatives that Council is proposing to ensure alignment with our sustainability goals?
Thank you, Ms Doe. I'll put that question to the Manager of Governance, Ms Roberts.
Through you, Mayor, and thanks, Isabel, for the question. The cafe at the Hub is leased to a tenant, and under that lease, the tenant has exclusive rights to operate the business without interference from Council as the landlord. There is no clause within the current lease regarding mandatory use of reusable cups. However, we have had discussions with the operator regarding similar complaints, and we will continue to have those in future. But at this point in time, the decision that is made to use whichever cups is that made by the tenant. I would suggest that anyone that does use the cafe and is given a disposable cup when a reusable cup will suffice, has a conversation directly with the operator to share your views. Council will continue to talk about more sustainable options with the current tenant, and any future lease that Council negotiates for these premises will have a range of special sustainability conditions included within it.
Thank you, Ms Roberts. Thank you, Ms Doe. Mr Bosman.
Madam Mayor, thank you. There are 4 further questions. The questioners have elected to have the questions read out to the gallery or in the meeting. These next 2 come from Mr Adam Murray of Keysborough. And the first one is with regard to the South East Business Conference. And he states that I note with pride that Mayor Eden Foster and Chief Executive Officer Jackie Wetherill were both in attendance at the South East Business Conference. Towards 2050, the name of the conference, held at Bunjil Place, Narrawarren on the 30th of August 2023. I also attended remotely. The question that Mr Murray asks is, what did our council learn and bring back from the conference that can assist our region to become the city of the South East we all want it to be? Madam Mayor, I'm going to take that question on notice for the CEO, Jackie Wetherill, to respond to upon her return. The next question from Mr Murray deals with the Keysborough South Community Hub, and he asks, may we please have an update on the building progress of the Keysborough South Community Hub? The protective fences and site office have been erected, and as of 31 August 2023, not much more appears to have happened. If there is a delay on materials or construction workers, that is okay. We would simply like to understand where we are in the progress or in the process, please. To raise awareness to the Dandenong Community Hub supporters, we have been patiently waiting since 2015 for this integrated intergenerational hub as planned.
Thank you,
Madam.
Mr Bosman. I'll put that question to Mr Berry, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Adam Murray, for the question. With regard to an update on the Keysborough South Community Hub, I can advise that there are some final approval processes being resolved before works can commence in earnest on the site. It is hoped to have these resolved in the next 2 weeks. In the meantime, the contractor will continue with site establishment and planning activities.
Thank you, Mr Berry. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, the next question is from Mr Philip Lamaro of Dandenong, and it deals with Thomas Street, Dandenong, on the footpath crowded with shop items. Mr Lamaro states, I submitted a question at the council meeting on 11 April 2023. As walking along Thomas Street this morning, I noticed that the footpath is still crowded with shops items and storage of empty boxes and crates. Currently, the Thomas Street footpath I mentioned is still unsafe for pedestrians, and the millions Council has spent on the Thomas Street improvement program is being limited by stores using the area as their display / rubbish area. I wish to clarify if the following has been done. A. What is Council's local law for shop owners using the footpath to store items for sale and storing empty boxes / crates? B. Has Dandenong Council inspected the area commented in my raised question? And C. As no current changes happened, what has Council done to ensure it is a safe and friendly area for pedestrians? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Jackson, please, if you could answer that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Mr Lamaro. I can advise that Council does have a local law that deals with matters relating to footpath activities, being Local Law No. 2, Clause 11. This local law requires a permit to place objects such as tables, chairs, screens and other goods on a footpath. In terms of the Thomas Street area, I can advise that Council's Regulatory Services team have recently undertaken a major educational drive to educate business owners on safe footpath practices. Following the completion of this educational drive, further enforcement of Council's local law will be occurring to ensure that all footpath activities are brought into compliance and to create a safe environment for all footpath users. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Jackson. Mr Bosman.
Madam Mayor, thank you. The last question from the public this evening is from Ms Gay Guest of Keysborough, and it deals with contractor notifications to the community. Ms Guest writes, I see Council are awarding contracts for roadworks and infrastructure tonight. As part of any contracts, can it be firmly enforced that all contractors must notify the local community prior and have adequate signage in place during the time of construction, as the contractors are popping up everywhere lately and causing long wait times? For example, from a notice board Facebook post, and I quote, does anyone know when Bloomfield Road will reopen? There's only signs saying road closed, but no dates or anything, close quotation. Traffic calming installations remain unpainted for days in Buckley and Bloomfield and are quite hazardous at night. On August 29, 2023, 9:27 a.m., Corrigan Road closed this morning for works on the traffic lights near Harold Road. Poor signage, zero traffic controllers, useless detours in place, a void area. And another one that Ms Guest quotes, cannot believe that it's taken nearly 12 months to put a simple set of traffic lights in and the complete disruption it has had. Followed by lots of cars coming down a leisure court, even though it's a dead end, obviously due to lack of signage, although there is a sign saying no through road. These are just some examples of the congestion that has been caused lately, and without warning or proper controls, a bit like the mayhem in Leonard Avenue for weeks. Can you please make sure these contractors follow the proper protocols every time? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Berry, if you could please respond to that question.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ms Guest, for the question. So yes, as part of the pre-construction meetings and on-site management for roadworks, it will be enforced that all contractors must notify the local community prior to and have adequate signage in place during the time of construction for all planned works. Depending on the duration and complexity, this may vary from letterbox drops or signs placed out several days beforehand for minor works, through to variable message boards and on-site traffic control with detours in place for larger projects. It is only for reactive or unplanned works where council needs to move more quickly to eliminate a hazard in the road reserve that our contractors won't be able to notify the community beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Berry. Item 4, Item 4, Officers' Reports, Part 2, 4.1, Contracts, 4.1.1, Contract number 2223 to 50, Concrete, Drainage and Asphalt Maintenance Services. Moved by Councillor Garrard. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor O'Reilly. Are there any questions, councillors?
I do have a question.
Yes, Councillor Tan, what is your question?
Thank you. Just regarding to the contract, so 5 million is over 2 years. Is that divided by equally amongst the 5 contractors? It doesn't state anything on the report.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. I'll put that question to Mr Berry.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Sophie, for the question. No, it's not necessarily divided evenly between the contractors. There's a panel of, I think it's 5 contractors. They each do slightly different things. Some of them tend to specialise in the bigger volume area works, whereas others might prefer to do the smaller one-off jobs. So depending on a number of things, their rates, their availability, their current capacity, the type of work, it's divvied up. We try and have work for all the contractors on it. We obviously don't want more contractors on a panel than what we have work for, but yeah, it's not necessarily evenly distributed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Berry. Councillor Tan, any further questions? Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
I indicate opposition, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Dark in opposition. As the mover, Councillor Garrard, would you like to speak to the item?
Madam Mayor, I would just defer to the documentation as we have been provided, and I'll await the points of opposition.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Garrard. As the seconder, Councillor O'Reilly, would you like to speak?
In the same way, I think all the reasoning is in the documentation, and I'd be interested to see what particular objections there are to it, given that nothing has been flagged to date. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. In opposition, Councillor Dark, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I rise to oppose this contract awarding the tender, and I oppose on the basis of a couple of things. One is that of the tender of the panel who have applied and tendered for this submission, the majority are not companies within the City of Greater Dandenong. The majority reside or operate generally in the City of Casey and other areas as well. And I had a commitment many, many times over that I would support local quality and local content and local employers and local companies that operate within our municipality. And to go down the stage of looking at contractors outside our area is not something that I'm overly supportive of. The second part that I have is that the contract tenders, who are the companies being put forward, for the most part, the most of them are current tenders that this council has. And the quality of workmanship in the City of Greater Dandenong, the quality of curb and channel, the quality of footpaths, it has fallen drastically in my opinion. It is substandard. There's clearly been an issue with the drop in the MPA, whether that's an increasing amount of water content, but I have raised multiple times, more than in the last couple of years of my term on council, that the quality of the footpath and curb and channel disintegrates quicker than the older areas that are long established. A lot of the complaints that I get in the new wards of Keysborough is a good example. That's only 10, 12 years old and already suffering severe disintegration. Within my ward, the areas seem to have been repaired, seem to have more and more issues. And we see the same thing in Hammond Road. Not long ago, there was a lot of works done at Hammond Road, and if you go down Hammond Road now, the disintegration of the curb and channeling is very, very, very rapid. And I have real concerns about awarding contracts to tenderers, which I've raised in the past, have concerns. I've raised about the quality of the workmanship that's going on, and I cannot put in good faith a significant amount of money, totaling almost $5 million worth of money, to a tender panel of some contractors who have previously done work that, in my opinion, is substandard, and that's why I won't be supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Are there any other speakers either for or against that would like to speak?
Madam Mayor,
Memedi?
if I can ask if the mover and seconder would approve in deferring this item. This is the first time I've heard Councillor Dark. I haven't heard this before, so to get more information from council officers, if it's appropriate to defer this to the next council meeting.
As the mover, Councillor
Thank you,
Garrard,
Madam Mayor. What I've heard is a lot of opinion, and I haven't heard a lot of evidence around quality of work. What I would ask is, is it appropriate for an officer to respond to some of those points now, or is that
Madam Mayor, can you make a
decision on the deferral?
What I've just said before Councillor Garrard continues?
Of course. So, Councillor Garrard, in terms of, and Councillor Riley, Councillor Memedi has asked if you would be happy for a deferral.
So my answer to that question is dependent on the answer to my question, which is if we can have further information, we can perhaps clarify this issue today. If not, we can defer.
Madam Mayor, you need to make a ruling whether they want yes or no. If they don't want to defer it, that's fine. Then we move on.
Point of order, Mayor. It is completely reasonable for people in this chamber to be asked to be informed before making yes or no decisions. There should be no problem from any councillor on some, particularly when new information or
point of order.
Councillor Riley.
I haven't finished mine.
Point of order.
Well,
yeah.
but I was on a point of order.
So I guess what I'd like to first.
I haven't finished my point of order.
So on what grounds is your point of order, though, Councillor Riley? That would be helpful.
Mayor, we should be as informed as possible and not forced into making yes or no decisions. That's the main point, Mayor.
Okay. And Councillor Memedi, your point of order?
So if I move for deferral and I get a seconder, it's not up to the mover and seconder then?
I'll just seek clarification from Manager of Governance.
And I'll second the deferral, Mayor.
Okay, so deferral moved by Councillor Memedi and seconded by Councillor Dark. So we'll put aside that one for the moment. Are there any questions about the deferral? No. Is there
a question there
regarding the deferral?
Yes.
Okay.
Question to the mover: why does the mover not think it reasonable that councillors be informed before we make decisions such as a deferral or on the substantive motion? Looking at the agenda paper, there's not much on tonight, Mayor. So why do councillors want to rush decisions through without us being informed on what we're actually deciding on, Mayor? It just seems like crash through or crash forcing through motions should not be the tone or the way that this council operates. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank
Councillor
you,
Memedi.
Mayor. I think Councillor O'Reilly answered his question by himself. There's not much on the agenda, and that's what's concerning me. That's why I've deferred it, to get more information from council officers before I make a decision either way.
Thank you, Councillor Memedi. Are there any further questions? Councillor Garrard, you've got a question regarding the deferral.
I would ask the mover of the deferral motion what time frame for the deferral?
Next council meeting.
Okay. Any further questions, councillors?
So question,
yes, Councillor Tan.
So what information? Sorry. So what information does the mover seconder need from this report further?
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Councillor Memedi.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. I've just been made aware that some of the works that Councillor Dark has raised in the past, I want to know exactly what those works are and when they've been raised and what council officers have done about them before I make a decision. So I don't think by asking a deferral for the next council meeting is going to make much difference with this contract. So basically all I'm saying is I need more information to make a decision. The report doesn't have a lot of info on there, and I think we're just asking to bring it to the next council meeting. It's not going to disadvantage anyone.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmedi. I might ask a question myself. Mr Berry, with the deferral for this item, what impact might that have, if any, on the contracts?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't believe it's going to have any impact. We've still got a little while to go before the current contract expires. And yes, look, I mean, that some of these comments are the first I'm hearing of them as well. So I'd like to follow up with both the tender assessment panel and my colleagues in the contracts unit about that and the way to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr Berry. Thank you. Are there any further questions, councillors? Councillor Garrett?
Are you asking to speak for? Can anyone
Sorry? We're not up to that point yet. We're not up to that point. If there's opposition, then I will. So is there any opposition to the deferral? Only if there's, so I ask for speakers for or against if there's opposition. So, well,
We're asking for opposition. It's a substantive motion.
yeah. So, okay.
It's not a procedural motion.
Mayor, point of order. Sorry. Can we clarify if this is if the deferral is a substantive?
All right, I'll double check with our manager of
procedural
governance.
motion?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms Roberts.
I can clarify that a deferral is not a procedural motion. It's written in the governance rules as being a substantive motion because it's completely opposite to the officer's recommendation of the time. Okay, so it's a substantive motion. It's not a procedural motion. You can oppose it if you want, as you can also oppose a procedural motion.
Thank you, Ms Roberts. Councillor O'Reilly.
Point of order and procedure, Mayor. If the deferral is a substantive motion, it does not overrule the original substantive motion. The only motion that can overrule or interrupt the deliberation on the substantive motion is a procedural motion. And we've now been told that this is not a procedural motion. So the original motion has to be dealt with, is my understanding, Mayor. If we could get advice on that, please.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Ms Roberts, please.
I don't actually agree with that, Councillor O'Reilly. A motion that is put forward at any stage needs to be dealt with, and if it's interrupted in the meantime by a further motion, then that motion needs to be dealt with. If it's interrupted by an amendment, then that amendment needs to be dealt with, and then you come back to the original motion. Now, with the deferral, it's going to negate the need to come back to the original motion because it's been deferred.
Thank you, Ms Roberts. Are we all clear? Okay. All right. So I'll return back to, is there any opposition to the deferral proposed by Councillor O'Reilly? So as the mover, Councillor Mehmedi, of the deferral, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor O'Reilly, for the second time, is wrong this evening, and thank you, Ms Roberts, for clarifying that. As Councillor O'Reilly said in his own words, there is no information in this motion before us. All I've asking, a councillor has raised some concerns. I've rang some alarm bells in my ears, thinking that I need more information to make a better decision. And what I'm asking my councillor colleagues is to just wait for another 2 weeks. Let's get the proper information. I'm not saying whether we go or don't go ahead with this motion. All I'm asking is for some more time to get some clarification, because what Councillor O'Reilly has just said in his own words is there's not enough information. It's only a few-page report. So I'm asking councillors, let's defer this for another couple of weeks and let's get all the information we need to make a proper, informed decision.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmedi. Councillor Dark, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, originally, obviously, I was in opposition to this item, and I'm happy to support the item being deferred for further clarification on particularly, I suppose, the scopes and the concerns that have been happened and been raised tonight as well. The concerns I have particularly, and what I do believe has happened, is within the council as well, substantially, has to do with the megapascal content and the quality of the concrete that's being poured. And I believe the MPA or the megapascal content has been dropped right down, which is probably leading to the disintegration of the assets. And I do have further questions I'd like to ask council officers as well. So I think that the best thing to do in order to, I suppose, progress this as well, knowing that it'll be coming up at the next council meeting, is to have a deferral.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Riley, in opposition, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, look, I can predict it in a substantive way that what will happen is that Councillor Dark's concerns will be answered. It won't impact the decision of the tender panel where they go through all the different issues regarding the tender and through the process, and then come through it. And the main impact with this, with council operating in this fashion, sort of insisting on deferring and refusing councillors' information in the meeting on why we should defer or not. So got both sides. One saying the councillors that are proposing this deferral are saying we have to defer it and you can't have any more information on why you should or should not defer it. So it's just more impacting on this council's reputation as a decision-making body to the eventual successful tenderer. I mean, we should be aware as councillors that we don't get to choose the successful tenderer. All we're doing is endorsing or not endorsing the outcome of the tender process and the panel. So even if councillors didn't agree with the successful tenderer, all that would mean would that it goes through the whole tender process again. So I think it's, again, councillors, one councillor stands up, puts out a few allegations about a tenderer, and it gets delayed, until the next council meeting. Okay, it's not a huge impact, just makes this council look bad as a decision-making body. That is the main impact that we will see when this comes back to the next council meeting and is endorsed then. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I think that if there is confusion, if there's worry, I think we should actually allow people the time and the space to ask questions. It's the planet is going to keep spinning if we do this. If it's going to allay fears, and due diligence is part of our role, I would support the deferral motion.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Are there any other speakers either for or against? Okay, we will go to a vote. So, my apologies. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your right of reply, Councillor Mehmedi. You do. Again, my apologies.
We've heard from the officer saying there's nothing going to change if a report comes back in 2 weeks' time. I've always believed that you've got to do your proper due diligence, and I've been concerned if our contractors are not using the appropriate MPA on the concrete. Councillor Dark has shown in a couple of instances that he's been aware of, and now he's asking the question and he's concerned about the contractors we are using. I think as councillors, we should listen, we should ask questions that we don't know or understand, and all I've asked is a deferral in a fortnight. And if all the questions that Councillor Dark has, or I have, or any other councillor has, and if they all get all those questions ticked off, I have no problem in supporting this motion in a fortnight's time. But let's go back, let's ask those questions, let's get all that information, and then we can make a decision quite comfortably that we are all understanding and aware of what that motion says and who the contractors are. So I'm urging all councillors to support this deferral.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmeti. Now we'll go to a vote. All those in favour of the deferral of this, please raise your hands. So in favour of the deferral. All right, so we have Councillor Trung, Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Tan, is that your hand up? Yeah, okay. Councillor Lim, Councillor Mehmeti, Councillor Dark, Councillor Milkovich, Councillor Foster. Looks like everyone's in favour, so the deferral is carried. And we'll seek to have those questions clarified as well that Councillor Dark has. Thank you. Item 4.2 Other. 4.2.1 Draft Minutes of Springvale Community Hub Committee Meeting 25th July 2023. Moved by Councillor Garrard.
And I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.2.2 Draft Minutes of Multicultural and People Seeking Asylum Advisory Committee Meeting 27th of June 2023. Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Mehmeti. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. List of 4.2.3 List of registered correspondence to Mayor and councillors. Do I have a mover, councillors? Moved by Councillor Lim, seconded by Councillor Mehmeti. Are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Dark, what is your question?
Thank you, Mayor. My question to the relevant officer regarding I suppose more so with the correspondence we received from the Glenara City Council Mayor regarding the priority advocacy projects that they've got in place. My question to the relevant officer is, what are the City of Great Dandenong's priority advocacy projects, given that we, I suppose, are coming up to a peak time and led up to starting the preparations for mid-year budgets?
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Ms Sprague?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Dark, we have been reviewing those key priority advocacy projects. They're currently on our website, but Exec has been talking about them, and we will be looking at what aligns with Glen Eira and certainly responding to Glen Eira.
Thank you, Ms Sprague. Are there any further questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this motion carried. Item 5, Notices of Motion. Are there any notices of motion, Mr Bosman?
Madam Mayor, there are no notices of motion.
Thank you. Item 6, Reports from Councillors, Delegated Members and Councillors' Questions. I will ask Councillor Trung to start, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I only attend, the church opening for Springvale and on the 30 Upper View Road, and the new church there, they just opened, and I attend last Sunday night. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Trung. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. No report this meeting.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last night, yourself and I attended a fabulous event at the Drum Theatre, which was a dancing competition event that was supported by the City of Greater Dandenong with a substantial grant, which enabled the fantastic event, which in fact went all weekend. Was an extraordinary event. However, we did observe, yourself and I, that this event, as great as it was, lacked diversity, and in fact there was very little representation of the residents of the City of Greater Dandenong, and so we will be looking into options and ways that we can actually influence that going forward. However, well done to the parents and to the staff that facilitated such an extraordinary event. My first question tonight is regarding the Noble Park trees. As we all know, there are two fabulous and important river gum trees in Douglas Street, Noble Park, for which this council has fought very hard to maintain those trees, and we were led to believe that that we had lost that fight, and that in fact at any moment those trees could be removed, which has sent panic through a large number of the residents of that area who are very concerned about these trees that are significant trees and have significant cultural and environmentally protective values. However, a letter has come to light from the Premier, who's the MP over that area, to say that actually there is another stage at which the council may be able to influence this process, and that is in fact when the building permit phase comes back to council. And I'm seeking clarification from the officer as to what level of influence the council may have. Can we save these trees, is my question.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Mr Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Garrard. As I think everyone in this room is well aware, the Minister for Planning has issued a planning permit for a 6-storey development in that location, and also the removal of a number of river red gum trees. Council strongly objected to the removal of the river red gum trees, but unfortunately that objection wasn't sort of upheld in terms of the decision issued. In terms of the planning permit itself, it does require that before any works can start, including the removal of the trees, amended plans need to be provided to council for us to then endorse those plans. However, when we review and endorse those plans, we can only consider the changes that are strictly required by condition 1 of that planning permit. So that doesn't involve the trees. So unfortunately, through the planning permit, we can't do anything to retain the trees. However, the trees also appear to be partially on council land. So there may be an option for council to look at how we can protect those trees, given they are potentially partially in our ownership at least. So we're currently seeking some advice as to how we may be able to protect those trees. There's no guarantees we will, but there may be an opportunity to do so outside of the planning permit, and we can provide further information once we've got that.
Thank you, Mr Jackson. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a follow-up question. Are both trees partially on council ground, and therefore is it possible to save both trees? But also, we've heard tonight that the protection of trees is coming in later this month. Were that to come before the permit, the building permit was submitted or approved, would that affect that, because it technically is on private land now, yeah?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. In terms of the trees, there's actually 3 trees that are proposed to come out. One is fully within the site, so there is no question, I suppose, in terms of that being any council ownership. There's one tree that is half on the private land and half on the council land, so that's part of what we need to look at. And then there's another street tree that is on council land. So in terms of the 3 trees, there's 2 that are potentially, we'll look into the options of whether we can do anything in that space. With regards to the local law for tree protection, that local law only comes into effect if there's not a requirement for a planning permit to remove those trees. And in this instance, there is a requirement for a planning permit. So that local law, unfortunately, wouldn't be an option to save those trees or that tree on the private land. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Jackson. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just to clarify, we may save 2, but 1's gone.
Mr Jackson.
Through you, Madam, potentially, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a follow-up question to an earlier question regarding the timing of the commencement of the Keysborough South works. We did not hear an explanation as to why. I think it's almost 2 months now since we turned the sod. Why has it taken 2 months for any works to commence? You state that it is to do with the permit. What is actually holding the permit up? Can you clarify?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Mr Berry, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Garrard. My understanding at the moment, the delay at the moment is with the building permit, because there's a process we need to go through where referrals go out to other third parties, and where we have to wait a set period of time before the responses come back to us. So that's the delay at the moment that will be resolved within the next 2 weeks. Whether that's the delay for the entire 2 months, I'm not certain. I'd have to take that part on notice and come back to you.
Thank you, Mr Berry. I might also ask Mr Bosman to respond to that question.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Councillor, to add to what Mr Berry has said, the building permit, it's a building permit that's causing, or the lack of a building permit that's causing the delay. The building permit may not be issued without the referrals being returned that are required to be returned before it can be signed off. And in this case, I believe there's just one agency outstanding, and we will make every effort to put pressure on that agency to return the referral. In the meantime, it's my understanding from Mr Berry that all of the site setup, all of the activity, everything is happening. Nobody's simply waiting around. They are on site, and as soon as we have the referral, and assuming that there is no objection from that referee, from that referral agency, and we push the go button, sign it, work will commence immediately on site. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a follow-up question. Who is the agency that we are waiting on?
Mr Bosman?
Madam Mayor, I'm not entirely sure, so I would rather take that question on notice and come back to you. I have an idea of who it is, but just for safety's sake, rather than misname somebody in this meeting, let me take it on notice and come back to you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor
Certainly, we
Garrard.
must not misname. That is what we're all here to observe. Can I just do a follow-up question? I just remembered. Is there legal advice being sought, going back to the Noble Park trees? Are we seeking legal advice? Was that what your response entailed?
Mr Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we are looking at getting some legal advice to see whether we can protect them. Yes, or retain them.
The follow-up question, Madam Mayor, what is the question we are putting to the lawyers regarding the advice?
Thank you. Mr Jackson, please.
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, the question relates to whether, because the trees are on council land, whether we have the ability to not permit their removal even though there is a planning permit in place for their removal. So it's around the fact that they're on our land and whether that means that we have a final say in whether they're removed or not.
Thank you, Mr Jackson.
And just the implications were that legal... We might as well stand up. Let's stand up. What are the implications if that came back, that we have the right to protect our own trees? What does that mean for the minister's permit?
Mr Jackson, please.
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, that would mean that potentially there would need to be an amendment to that permit to be able to construct it. Or if they were able, the alternative is they may be able to build it and still protect those trees. I guess that would be something for consideration. But yes, it could have some impact on the development.
Thank you, Mr Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's hope. There's hope in the old dog yet. We may get to save 2 trees. That's very good news. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My last question relates to Clough Street Park. That is there's not yet Clough Street Park. My question still remains about whether we still have the option of seeking an Indigenous name for Clough Street, because we do have a policy of naming, and this may be a question without notice to our friend there, but we do have a policy of diversity in naming and some affirmative action around the naming of our places of public interest. So is the option still open? And if it is, what would be required to initiate that process?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. I might put that question to our friend over to my side, or to my right-hand side, Ms Roberts.
Hello. We actually just abolished our naming policy because everything that we do for naming rules in Victoria comes under the guidelines for naming rules in Victoria. And under those naming rules, we do have an obligation to consider Indigenous naming, and there's a full process on how we go about that. We would have to negotiate and communicate with the Bunurong Land Council now that they've been registered as the traditional owners of the land. And we also have to consider female names as well. Like, we have to give everything equal consideration. So there is a possibility of renaming. It's a complex process. It does take time, but we do have to consider Indigenous and female names as well as other names.
Thank you, Ms Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's been 4 years now since that land was bought, so I think we have time. I think we've waited 4 years. We could wait further time. Can I seek clarification? Is the High Court decision about the traditional owners resolved, and has that the Bunurong now fully resolved as the First Nations people here?
Ms Roberts?
I don't believe it has been resolved. It's still on the burners, so to speak, and we have no idea when that will be resolved, but we will still act in accordance with the Bunurong Land Council as we do now, until we are told differently.
Thank you, Ms Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all from me.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Councillor Tan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. My first question just, I just want to mention about the tree as well from the 51A Douglas Street, the planning application. So as you're aware, we try to get contact with the Minister office as well to, at least have a meeting, discuss about moving forward. So I did receive some feedback from the Minister office last week. So I did send it through to our directorate as well. So just regarding to the tree, I just want to make a few comments. So on the email received, so they mentioned the retention of the tree is the matter of the developer to negotiate directly with council, so including an approach to remove or replace the tree. So basically moving forward, discuss any further has to be between us and develop, so nothing to do with the Minister office anymore. Could I get feedback from our directors, Mayor? Just want to clarify the process moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. I'll put that question to Mr Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Tan. Yes, as previously mentioned, there is, as those trees are potentially, well, one's definitely on council land, the other's potentially on council land, there is a potential negotiation required with those trees to be removed. And as I said earlier in response to Councillor Garrard's question, we're seeking some advice as to how we may or could go about that. So once we have that, we'll report back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Jackson. Councillor Tan?
Thank you. Okay, so that's one. I can send through the feedback as well to pass it on if we can. I'm not sure if we can also list it on the Greater Dandenong website regarding to this application, and just a response from the Minister office as well. So just moving forward, so everyone can see the feedback from the the feedback from them as well. My second question, just regarding to our contractors cutting grasses around reserve and small pocket park. So how often are we doing the schedule? Because I believe I visited one of the pocket park over the weekend. At the 10 Kennett Street Noble Park, the grass grown pretty much like up to my ankle. So I just want to find out what's the timeline with cutting the grass at the reserve at the moment with our contractor. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Berry, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Tan. Look, most of our open spaces are mown on a monthly basis. I'm happy to look into what's going on at that particular reserve. I just point out that we are heading into spring, so this is the peak period for grass growth, where it does grow a lot faster than the rest of the times of the year. So whether that's what's causing those observations that you're making, but to answer your question, yes, it's generally on a monthly cycle for our open space areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Berry. Councillor Tan?
Yes, that's fine. So I can send some information about that. So can we have a look? Because I know it's springtime as well, so it's just very dangerous if you get snakes around and stuff like that. Or, as it's not safe for the residents. So if you can get it cut and then make it more, more friendly for our residents who visit, that'd be great. So I'll send through the information shortly, Matthew. Thank you. That's all from me. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mayor. Just Tuesday before last, I attended Autumn Voice Forum. I was one of the panel speakers with Honourable Claire O'Neill, Senator Jana Stewart, Mr. Ruben Burt, First People's Assembly of Victoria, and Andy Tran. And also Thursday before last as well, I joined council dinner between our council and his city of Kingston at Kingston Town Hall. And after that, on the Sunday, the 3rd of September, attending a Cambodian Buddhist youth group by providing health seminar to them. Tonight, my question already answered by our acting CEO already for 20 minutes, and also Mr. Ken Buckbuster for half an hour. Thank you for that. That's all for me.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Councillor Mametti.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, the honour to officially open the CRL Express Logistics and Warehouse in Abbotts Road. It's an 8,000 square metre under roof warehouse, and they'll be employing many local people, and it was great to welcome into some brand new facilities in Abbotts Road. Also, Madam Mayor, with yourself and Councillor Garrard, we officially opened the WJ Crow Pavilion at the Thomas Carroll Reserve. $6 million brand new pavilion, fantastic upgrade to the children's playground, the car park, paving, understand new lighting, and also 2 electronic scoreboards are coming soon. So what a fantastic effort it has been. It's taken a while. It's a project that started around COVID time, and the clubs have been very, very patient with us, and to see that finally come to fruition and seeing the clubs were, both the cricket club and the football club were very, very happy, and it's great to see that these projects are coming towards an end. I know we've got an opening of Ross Reserve in the next month or so, so these brand new facilities are ready and ripe for our community to use, so it was great being able to attend the opening of the W. Joe Crow Pavilion on the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mametti. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my first question for this evening to the Director for Community Services. I received an email over, I suppose, at the middle of last week to do with the Raleigh Island Reserve, and unfortunately they were the victim of a break-in, an attempted break-in in both the judges, or the box where the coaches sit, and then also the pavilion as well. I just want to find out from the relevant officer what we've put in place in terms of making sure whether there's any additional security protections that are being installed, and or what the recourse is for that damage that's been done.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. I'll put that question to Ms Gillies, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dark, for your question. I'll have to come back to you with some specific information. The team were looking into that at the end of last week.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. My next question is from the Keysborough Bowls Club. I've been asked from the committee whether it's possible to organise a meeting with the relevant directors as well. They have experienced, I suppose, a bit of a surge in growth as well, and they've commenced a program of getting a lot of the older people who live nearby in Keysborough, in the Keysborough South Ward in Noble Park as well, and a lot of them who had been previously going to the Keysborough Hotel to play pokies, amongst other things, and actually getting them to come to the Lawn Bowl Centre to, I suppose, have a conversation and to avoid getting caught up in the rigmarole of gambling. They just also had questions about the potential improvements that can be done in future budgets as well. If it was possible for the relevant officers to organise a meeting with them, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Ms Gillies, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, got the wobbles. Thanks, Councillor Dark, and really appreciate you bringing forward many of the clubs in the community that are experiencing growth. So absolutely, we'll get in contact. If you could just send me through the contact details, we'll arrange that this week.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my third question is to the Director of Community Services as well. This can be taken on notice as well. I actually had a meeting last week with the new pastor from Lighthouse Christian College and the Lighthouse Christian Church on Springvale Road, and they have relocated from Merimbula, where they were very active in the community in terms of supporting the council at events. And I met with him and had a good conversation with Pastor Fernandez. And the questions that they had particularly centred around what they can do in terms of involvement in the community. They asked about whether we have a Christmas carols program, what can be facilitated from that, and also about any Meals for Wheels, any voluntary services providing meals or support for the people who are homeless and the elderly and things. He seems very, very keen on, I suppose, revitalising and reactivating the church and making them a big community citizen. If it's possible to organise a meeting, I'll of course forward through the information, but I know he's very, very keen on getting involved.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Dark. Ms Gillies, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dark. Absolutely. Please send me through the info and we'll certainly follow that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And just one final statement, very, very exciting. I might be 30 years old, but it's been a long time coming, and the Wachter Reserve Playground is almost open. There's been a bombardment of emails day in, day out, and I know I've been going past regularly to see where it's come up to. The playground looks absolutely fantastic. It looks awesome. And not only because I had a big say in getting it done, but it does look really, really, really good. The involvement of the council officers in getting to a stage where it's been delivered, and the community feedback that I've had, calls coming to me about when the fence is coming down. I had a photo sent to me the other day of a kid, a small child, actually by the gate looking, trying to get in, have a look. So I'm very, very excited to see that this, hopefully this week, will formally be opened, the fence will be removed. And it'll be the next stage in the Wachter Reserve Master Plan. So to the the Acting Director of Engineering, and also to the Director as well, thank you for finally delivering the project and getting it on time and having it open. Very exciting.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. It sounds like the inner child in you can't wait to hop on that swing, hey, or the slides there. Might be a good photo shoot too. Councillor Milkovich, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. Some of the events I attended, or one of the ones that I'm going to mention, as Councillor Lim mentioned, is the joint dinner with the Kingston Council. It's a very productive dinner, very nice atmosphere. Get to learn a lot about City of Kingston and some of their important things that they run over there. So that was really good to catch up and share some ideas and opinions as to how the local government works and what we can do as councillors to improve the mechanism of it. A question to relevant officer. I've had quite a few calls from our residents regarding the late delivery or sort of quite a late, very late delivery of the local Dandenong Council newsletter. Some of them arrived in the month of September for August, and the residents are, not that they're upset, but they're sort of disappointed that some of the events that are on the calendar were already missed and gone. So if I could ask the relevant officer to please respond in regards to what we can do to improve the delivery times and obviously get residents to be aware of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Ms Sprague, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, yes, we are having a few problems with the prompt delivery of the news. Unfortunately, because it goes out with the letterbox mail, so the letter delivery, it's considered part of letter delivery. The frequency of that has been reducing steadily over the last few months. And so whereas we used to be able to guarantee a 5-day delivery, we can now no longer do that. It's more like pushed out to 15. So it has significantly impacted on residents, and I understand, and I'm very sympathetic to the fact that they're not getting the newsletter on time. We are looking at alternatives and ways to speed that up at the moment. The other thing I would do is encourage people to sign up for our e-news so that they get it on a more regular basis if they've got access to the internet. We are happy to add people to our direct mail database, although at the same time that also goes out with the letters. So it might be a little delayed. But ideally, if people can access that online or from one of our community centres or customer service centres, it's probably the quickest way of getting hold of it. But please be assured we are trying to address it, and we are working closely with Australia Post to let them know about our frustrations with that delivery. It's just, unfortunately, their business is now probably prioritising parcels over letterbox, and as letters reduce, the delivery frequency has certainly reduced as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Sprague. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Ms Sprague. Thank you, Mayor. I haven't got any parks in my ward open to get excited about. However, as a proud Australian Serbian citizen, I am proud to say that I've witnessed this morning Novak Djokovic win his 24th record-breaking and record in Grand Slam. So that was the highlight of my morning around 6 o'clock in the morning. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. I'll make my report quick as well. So I attended, in the past couple of weeks, I attended the Kindness Community in Hemmings Park, where they, every Tuesday, provide food and supplies to those less fortunate than us. And they do a fantastic job in providing for our community. So I wanted to pay them a visit and help out a little bit on a Tuesday night, and it was a privilege to be there with the volunteers that work really hard and also the recipients of their great work. A couple of things that have already been mentioned, but I too attended the grand opening of the CRL Express Proprietary Limited in Dandenong South. Paid, one of my favourite things to do is paying a school visit, and I went to Heather Hill Primary School to discuss civics and levels of government, and particularly what the local level of government does. And the kids know how to ask fantastic questions. So I had some really great, intelligent questions from grade 6 students. So it's always lovely to educate our young and potential leaders. And as was mentioned, also attended the Joint Council dinner with the City of Kingston, which they hosted, and it was lovely to enter their town hall and see what their town hall has to offer. I believe my mum, over 50 years ago, was actually given her citizenship in that hall. So it was nice. It was lovely, a lovely event to be able to create partnerships with our local councils and to have collegiate relationships with them and work collaboratively. Also attended the ONAM celebration with the Melbourne Mallee Federation at the Springvale City Hall, another opportunity to witness the colour and diversity of our community, and with the dance on offer, the food, it was an amazing event to attend. And that same night I attended the annual dance presentation of the Nathanalea Dance School. So I was truly entertained with the cultural diversity of our municipality. And with my fellow councillor, Councillor Garrard, I attended the Alex Wilkie Nature Reserve Spring Thing. So for anyone who lives in the municipality or outside our municipality, it's a hidden gem. Alex Wilkie Nature Reserve is a must-see reserve. And to experience nature in that reserve, go on a tour with one of our rangers, learn a lot about nature and what it has to offer, and how it is well preserved in that little space tucked away in Springvale South. It is a little gem. So it was great to see so many families there to celebrate the spring thing of Alex Wilkie Nature Reserve opening up again for the season. I attended the lunch with the Macedonian Senior Citizens Group. They were celebrating their 32nd year of independence. It was fantastic to be part of the dancing and the celebration with the senior citizens from the Macedonian group that has their club in Springvale. So it was another fantastic reflection of our diversity. Another key moment for me was attending the launch of the OMID support services. They are an NDIS provider supporting Afghan, Hazara and Iranian locals with disabilities. So it's fantastic to see a culturally specific NDIS provider coming into our city and servicing the southeast. And I might leave it there because it's been quite a big 2 weeks. Mr. Bosman, are there any questions to take on notice and table, or that were taken on notice in the last meeting and to table at this meeting?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Yes, there were 10 questions taken on notice or requiring further attention. All have been addressed and have been tabled here tonight for the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Item 7, urgent business. Is there any urgent business? As there's no urgent business, I declare tonight's meeting closed at 18 minutes past 8. Thank you and have a good night.